Right? The next one is that after we are buried in the grave, now what will happen? Then we have also mentioned the story about the siwak, isn't it? And the two angels. What made them being saved from the fitna of the two malakan, of the two angels? رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَتُبْ عَلَيَّ إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ. طيب. Next one is after you enter the grave, then angels will come to you. And we have said, have you mentioned about the picture of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Have you mentioned about it? When a person goes to the grave, they will ask you, who's your Lord? And then you will mention Allah. And then they will ask you, what do you say about this man? They will show to you the picture of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then you will say, this is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you are a person who loves Rasulullah, who read about the shama'il of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who brings yourself close to the righteous, you know what are the kinds of clothing of the sunnah, and you know some of the attributes of the features of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when you see the picture, you will immediately know this is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you don't know, if you don't learn about Muhammad, if you are amongst those people who used to show enmity against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then what will happen to you? You will say, I don't know. I used to hear people saying this about this man, so I said. And then the angel will say, La darait wa la talit. You don't know, and you have never learned about this man. And then Rasulullah ﷺ said that the angels will hit that dead man with it's like a hammer. And then he will go down in the earth. 70 years of traveling towards in the earth. And then he will shout, and every single thing could hear his shout, his cry, except for jinn and men. They are not able to hear the shouting of the dead. رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَتُبْ عَلَيَّ إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ. And there was one story for Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu. And when he went into the grave, there was one man, he dreamt about Sayyidina Umar after his death. Because Sayyidina Umar, mashallah, he is known as a just leader on the face of earth. And he is known as a man who everyone was scared of him. Even shaitan was scared of him, Sayyidina Umar. Up to an extent, Rasulullah said that, Ya Umar, O Umar, if you would walk on a street, then shaitan will walk through the streets which you have not passed through. لو سلكت فجا لسلك الشيطان فجا آخر غير فجك. The shaitan will look for another street, not from the streets which Umar has passed through. So Umar, there was one man, I'm not sure if it's a Sahabi or if it's a Tabi'i. He dreamt of Umar radiallahu anhu. Sayyidina Umar was in the grave. This is a dream. And good dreams are true. Tamam. Al-Ru'ya Salihah, as how mentioned by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, lam yalqa min an-nubuwwah illa juz'un min 46 juz'a. And then Rasulullah said, illa al-mubashirat. There is nothing left from the prophecy except for mubashirat, and it is one portion from 46 of the prophecy. And then the Sahaba asked, what is it, Ya Rasulullah? Wa mal mubashirat? Qala ar-ru'ya salihah. What does it mean by glad tidings? And then Rasulullah said that good dreams. So when it comes to good dreams, it is meaningful. But when it comes to bad dreams, what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. What should you do if you have bad dreams? A'udhu billah minash shaitan rajim, spit 3 times on the left hand, change your sleeping position, that's all. Don't think about something, this has happened, If I dream this kind of thing, mashallah, you sleep at night, and then you dream some black cat come into your house, mashallah. And then you will shock, something coming to my house. horror movie. Tamam. Or maybe whatever it is. Never entertain any kind of bad dreams. But when it comes to good dreams, yes, it means something. It is sunnah for you, if you wake up, for you to say, "Oh Allah, make my dream as how you have, make my dream come true." And if you need, you do salat hajat. So this man, he dreamt about Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu anhu. And Umar was in the grave. And 2 angels came to him. "Ya Umar, sit down." Umar said, "Who's your Lord?" He dreamt that Umar took his stick. Umar is known to have one dirra. He has a stick. At the end of the stick, he has a piece of leather from the sandal of Rasulullah SAW. So he took his dirra. He said, "You asking me about my Lord?" And then the angels ran away. Tamam. It's a good dream because it shows that Umar, his whole life, he worked for his Lord. And my whole life I work for my Lord, and now you're asking about who's my Lord? So then the angels ran away. That is just a dream. But it might be true. Because everyone was scared of Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu anhu. That was Sayyidina Umar. And that is the same thing, and that is exactly why we do talqeen. You know talqeen? Oh, Fulan bin Fulan, if the 2 angels come to you and say to you that who's your Lord, don't be scared. Verily they are amongst the creation of your God. Tamam. If they give salam, then answer their salam. If they don't give salam, no, this is not in talqeen. If they don't give salam, you're gone. If they give salam, then answer their salams. If they ask you who's your Lord, then tell them it's Allah. If they ask you who's your Prophet, then tell them it's Muhammad. If they ask you who's your Imam, then it is Quran. If they ask you what's your Qibla, then tell him it is Kaaba. If they ask you who's your brothers, then tell them Muslims. These are the talqeen. When we give talqeen, know that the date will hear your talqeen. And then someone will say, "No, how can a person who has died is able to hear someone from someone who's alive? Isn't it from a 2 different worlds?" Yes, they are living in 2 different separate worlds. But the dead is able to hear from those who are alive. As how being said by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is exactly what Rasulullah did during Badr. After the war of Badr, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to the dead bodies of the kuffar, of Abu Jahl, of Umayyah bin Khalaf, of Abu Lahab, and so on. Rasulullah sallallahu came to them, and what did Rasulullah say? "Hal wajadtum ma wa'ada rabbukum haqqan? Fa inna qad wajadna ma wa'ada rabbuna haqqan." He said, "Have you find truth on the things which God has promised for you? Verily we have found that whatever our God has promised for us is true." What God has promised for Rasulullah? Victory on Badr. And what did Rasulullah promise for the kuffar? What Allah promised for the kuffar? For those who doesn't convert into Islam before they die, they will go to the hellfire, and they will have torments just at the beginning of the moment of their death. They will start to be tortured by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then when Umar radiyallahu anhu, he saw Rasulullah sallam was doing that, and subhanallah, Umar didn't have any doubt on the acts of Rasulullah, but Umar wanted people to know that what Rasulullah sallam doing is something which is legitimate, and it is not just Rasulullah doing that out of nothing. So Rasulullah sallam asked, Sayyidina Umar asked Rasulullah, "Ya Muhammad, Ya Rasulullah, you are saying all these things to the dead bodies? Can they even hear it?" And then Rasulullah ﷺ said, "They can hear whatever you say, except that you are not able to hear whatever is happening to them." So the dead bodies, they are able to hear from whatever we say. If we go to the graves and we tell them, "Answer that your God is Allah," answer that your Prophet is Muhammad, they are able to hear. Isn't it amongst good acts that you give reminders both to the dead and also to the live ones? To remind us that our God is Allah, then our Prophet is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and so on. So never reject talqeen. It is amongst good acts, and this is sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is not bid'ah. This is not bid'ah. This is something which is encouraged in the religion. The next act is if you recite Al-Quran. If you recite Al-Quran in the graves, do you get benefit? Or do the dead get benefit? Yes. When you recite Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give certain kind of rahmah to you. We could also hear from the story of Sahaba, when he had a camel, when he had a horse next to his tent. And then when he was reciting, it was a Thursday night, and he was reciting Surah Al-Kahfi. What happened to the horse? The horse reacted and was making so much noise. And then he stopped reciting, and then he went to the horse. He saw, is there anything wrong with the horse? And then the horse kept quiet. And then he went back to the tent and he recited his Quran again. And then the horse starting to make lots of noise and movements. And then he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that verily the horse is able to see that the angels is coming down from the heavens, entertaining the recitation of Al-Quran. So the horse was reacting towards what the horse has seen. If horses could see blessings from Allah, what makes you think that people cannot see? Especially those people who has entered the grave, when they are able to see all the unseen. They are able to get rahmah. And some people, they always say, Imam Shafi'i himself said that the reward will not reach the dead if you recite Quran. They did not complete the sentence of Imam Shafi'i. The dead will not receive the reward of you reciting Quran if, number one, you're not reciting in his presence, which is his grave. Number two, if you did not intend the reward of the recitation of the Quran for him, which means if suddenly you just come to the masjid and you just recite Quran, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, would the dead will get reward because of your recitation? Of course, he will not get reward because of recitation unless he was the one who has taught you Al-Quran. Then he will get reward, regardless if you recite it wherever you are. You will be rewarded. If you recite the Quran not at his grave, or you didn't intend the reward of the recitation of Al-Quran for him, of course he will not get anything. That is what Imam Shafi'i said. But if you would sit at the grave, even if you didn't mention his name, he will get the reward. If the dead is able to benefit from the tasbih, from the praisings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is done by the trees and grasses around him, what makes you think about the recitation of Al-Quran of a man? He will not get any benefit from it. So the dead will be able to benefit from it as long as you recite the Al-Quran in his presence. Or you go in a masjid and you intended that this recitation of Al-Quran will be for Fulan, it will reach Fulan. And it will not only benefit Fulan, it will benefit anyone else around him, everyone else around him. This is exactly as how we can see from the one lady who used to do khidmah in the Masjid al-Nabawi. She was a cleaner of Masjid al-Nabawi. Kannasa, she was known as a cleaner. The Sahaba didn't even know what her name was. Because why? She only came into the masjid when there was no one in the masjid. She came to clean the masjid and do all the dirty things, and she left. She will leave. Okay? There was one day Rasulullah SAW realized that she was not around. And Rasulullah asked the Sahabi, where is this lady? Where is this lady? Some of them were reluctant to answer the question of Rasulullah because They didn't want Rasulullah SAW to be somehow embarrassed to be related to, this lady is the khadimah of Rasulullah. They didn't want that. So they didn't want to tell Rasulullah. Then Rasulullah found out that she was dead. She has passed away. And Rasulullah asked the Sahabi, tell me where is her grave. And there was a reason why the Sahabi didn't want to tell Rasulullah where was her grave. Rasulullah was reluctant until Rasulullah find her grave. When Rasulullah found her grave, what did Rasulullah do? Rasulullah prayed on her grave. Do Salatul Janazah. And in fiqh, as long as the body is intact, you are allowed to do Salatul Janazah on the grave, with certain conditions. That this person died during your lifetime. MashaAllah, you don't go to Maqam Habib Noor and then you do Salatul Janazah. Because why? Because I believe his body is intact. Yes, I believe the same as what you believe. But Habib Noor didn't live at your time, so you're not allowed to do Salatul Janazah. There are conditions for you to do Salatul Janazah to that person. So Rasulullah went to the grave and Rasulullah did Salatul Janazah. And Rasulullah said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave her and everyone around her. Because she was amongst those ladies who cleaned the masjid. And when it comes to giving services to the religion, don't ever think that what I'm doing is something insignificant or nothing. La. Everything that you do for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and for religion, it is great. And it is regarded well by Allah and by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself, regardless if it's only cleaning, if it's only dua, if it's only few cents donations for the masjid, it is only some things you do. Anything that you have done, if you have done it sincerely for the sake of Allah and to make Rasulullah sallallahu happy, it is valuable in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not nothing. Allah will value it, Rasulullah SAW will value it, and Allah will reward it according to His generosity, insyaAllah Jalla Jalaluhu wa ta'ala fi'ala. Right. That is also some of the discussion on the permissibility of doing talqeen. Now we have known that it is allowed for you to visit the grave, it is allowed for you to recite the Quran on the grave, it is allowed for you, it is not only allowed, it is encouraged. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will go to the grave of Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib every year, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would change the cloth on the grave every year. On the time of Uhud, Rasulullah will go to the grave of Hamza. Rasulullah will change the cloth of Hamza's graves, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will make dua for Hamza every year during the time of Uhud. What is the date of Uhud? When did Uhud happen? Shawwal, third year of Hijrah. In the month of Shawwal, Uhud happened in Shawwal. Rabbi ighfirli wa tub alayya innaka antat tawwabur rahim. That is also one of the evidence which is allowed for us to do hawl. What does hawl means? Anniversary. Hawliyah, anniversary. That is exactly what being practiced at Maqam Habib Noor, and also for Habib Hassan's father, Habib Muhammad bin Salim bin Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attas. Muhammad bin Salim bin Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attas. Habib Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attas, he was a great big time Imam in Hadramaut. Habib Hassan's great grandfather, Hassan bin Muhammad bin Salim bin Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attas. He was a great big Imam in Hadramaut during his time. Habib Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attas. He was a blind man, but he had very strong sight in his heart. There was one Habib Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attas. He went to Egypt to do da'wah, and he was a blind man, as how we have mentioned, Habib Ahmad bin Hassan. So he had someone who is together with him to bring him around. And there's a lot of majadhib in Egypt. It is known since those days in Masr until now. There's a lot of majadhib. awliya Allah, but they are the opposite side of the awliya Allah. They come in with a very dirty clothes, they say funny words, and then they like to say nafihni. Habib Salim told us, Habib Salim al-Shatri, he said that if they said nafihni, means they are asking some money from you. Nafihni, give them some gifts. Nafahat means some gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they are asking some money from you, so you should give them. There are a lot of awliya who likes to take your money. Why? Purify your wealth. We have a lot of funny involvements in our wealth, so they like to take money from us. Why? Purify our wealth. It's a form of zakat. And what they do with your wealth? They take for themselves. They buy big cars, big houses. No, they give sadaqah to difficult people. That is exactly what Habib Ali al-Idrus, Habib Ali bin Ja'far in Batu Pahad, if you go and see him, you give him money, what he will say? Why do you give me? What can I do with this money at this age? When I was younger, at least I'm able to distribute all this money. If you give me now, what can I do with it? Then he will take your money, he will give to this one. And then this one, he will take money, he will give to this. Khalas, done. This is awliya Allah. And he lived in a very small house, mashallah. And he said, why you give me money? I got hundreds of thousands of dollars every year, every month from Singapore. He said that, mashallah. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in living in a small house like that. This is awliya Allah. They don't use their money for themselves. And you can find a lot of awliya Allah in Tarim, in Hadramaut. They will always ask for money. If you want to give, if you don't, you just walk away. That's all. If you are able to give, you give. And that is the same exactly how it will happen throughout everywhere in the world. In Singapore, in Malaysia, in wherever it is. When you see difficult people, especially those people who make dua and these kind of things, they put kufiah on. MashaAllah, help. You don't know whether he will be amongst the awliya Allah or not. Give a little bit. If you are not able to give a little bit, at least give salam. Assalamu alaikum. And then he will make dua for you and then say Ameen. Don't ever say that, your dua, I don't need your dua because you want money from me. Don't ever do that. So going back to our discussion. No, Habib Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attas. And then after some times, while they were walking, he told his man, bring me there, towards one direction. And then he said, Ya Habib Ahmad, it was like a disco place where people have ma'asi, people drink, people gamble, people womanize at that place. And then he said, bring me there. And he said, Habib, that's not the right place to go. He said, bring me there. So then the helper brought Habib Ahmad bin Hassan al-Attas until he reached the front of that place. And then there was a man sitting down in front of that, let's say it's a disco, let's say, I don't know what it's called at that time, that particular place, but let's say it's a disco. And then Habib Muhammad bin Hassan saw there was a man was sitting in front of that disco. And Habib Muhammad bin Hassan al-Attas asked, what are you doing here? He said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instructed me to be here, for me to do istighfar for those people inside this place, so that they will not be tortured by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately. So he sits in front of the disco, he just do istighfar, he make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for such people. And then Habib Ahmad Hassan al-Attas asked that man to make dua for him and stayed together with him for a while before he left. And these are for strong people. If you think you're not strong enough to be to do such a thing, then don't go to those places. Otherwise you sekali masuk dalam. If you're not strong enough, don't do it. Stay away from it. And until now, we know some people, mashallah, da'i. And we have heard a lot of ustad, when they don't have strong iman, they want to be with bikers, they want to be with gamblers and everything, they want to be with womanizers. They think at first they want to do da'wah to them, but in the end they are drowned together with them. At the same time, there are also very few people who do da'wah in such places. They go inside those places and they bring them out of those places. Come, mashallah, up to an extent a singer become a mu'adhin. Those people who not used to pray, the worst, the least expected person will ever come to masjid is this man. MashaAllah, he comes to masjid. We know some ustad who do like that, even in Singapore. He has a big group of followers who are those kind of people. They do umrah together and everything. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. But if you think you're not strong enough, then don't do it. These leave it to the experts. Leave it to the experts. You do what you can do. Because there are many people who, when they want to do such a thing, what happened to them? They are drowned together with those people. Taib. And then after you go to the grave, you will be questioned. And then this grave is a form of grave is the first place where you will go. If you are successful in the grave, then the rest of the journey until akhirah, until you enter Jannah, you will be very successful and easy. But if you have failed in the grave, then if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, He forgives you. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants, if He wills, He will afflict you with a small portion of the torment which you deserve. If He wants, He will afflict you with a big portion of torment which you deserve. Or if He wants, He will torture you everything which you deserve. Na'udhu billahi min dhalik. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protection from that. The graves. And if you are a good servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the grave will be expanded as wide as how your eyes are able to see. As far as you are able to see. That is how your grave will be expanded if you are a good man. If you are a person who likes to recite Al-Quran, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send a man to you in the grave to be together with you to keep you company. And that man will be reciting Al-Quran for you. And these graves, as we know, it will be either amongst the gardens of the paradise or will be amongst the holes of hellfire. That is why we hear that what comes to the grave, the one that comes to the grave are like the snakes of hellfire, the scorpions of hellfire. MashaAllah, the scorpion in the grave is not like our scorpion now, MashaAllah. Our scorpion now, how big can it be? Maximum the size of a book. This is also already MashaAllah. Scorpion the size of a book. In the graves, the scorpion will be the size of a what? Of a mule. You know what's a mule? It's between donkey and horse. That is the size of scorpion that will be in the grave. It's very big. It's very painful. And once it touches you, na'udhu billahi min dhalik, we ask Allah protection from it. It will be the holes of hellfire. And it also will be amongst the gardens of Jannah. It will be the gardens of Jannah. And in the grave, if you are amongst the good people, mashallah, then the walls of the grave will fall down, and it will be like the windows that you can see where you are going to stay. MashaAllah. So you will be looking at palace, animals, trees. Some people who doesn't do much dhikr, barren land, empty. This is what exactly being said by Nabi Ibrahim. Next week we will hear the story, Isra al Mi'raj. We will not complete the story next week, inshallah. Now, what Nabi Ibrahim told Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam: some barren land, some rivers, mashallah. If you never drink alcoholic drinks in this world, or you are amongst those people who have drink but has done tawbah, then you will see rivers of wine. If you have drank wine before here and you did not do tawbah, then there's no river of wine. No. Because that's what being said by Rasulullah SAW. If you drink in this world, then you'll not be able to drink in the akhirah. If you don't drink in this world, or maybe you have drink before but you have done tawbah, you will still get, inshallah. And then, mashallah, you will enjoy from the chirpings of the birds, mashallah, smell of Jannah. You'll be looking, and then suddenly Allah SWT will send one woman from Jannah to you. For the man, woman lah. for the woman maybe mad lah. To keep him accompanied. So when he just started playing with the hur, suddenly Qiyamah has been called. Basically he is not even able to play properly with the hur, then suddenly Qiyamah is being called, because he was enjoying the moment. He couldn't feel that he has passed a big amount of time. But for those people who they are not obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that will be the place that it will be very torturous and difficult for them. Up to an extent, what they will say, they say, Ya Allah, it's enough, don't torture us here anymore, just bring Qiyamah as soon as possible and send us to the hellfire as soon as possible. They thought that the torment of hellfire was much lesser than the torment of the grave, not realizing that the torment of hellfire is much more difficult than the torment of the grave. It will be very, very difficult time for them. Angels will come in a form of fire, will be torturing them. Na'udhu billahi min dhalik. And we have to always be careful and do as much as possible so that we are able to stay in the grave as one of the gardens of Jannah, as one of the gardens of Jannah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us our graves make our graves as gardens of Jannah, and also to our forefathers who has passed away, our parents, our grandparents, and our family members who has passed away. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decorate their graves and make it as the gardens of Jannah. Ameen. Rabbil firli wa tub alayya innaka antat tawwabur rahim. What time is Maghrib? 7:09. 7:09. 5. We have another 29 minutes. For those people, there are 5 people who their bodies will not be destroyed in the grave. Have you explained him before? Now this is the homework. There are 5 people who their bodies will not be destroyed in the grave. So it's a homework. Their body will be intact, mashallah, until the day of Qiyamah. Until the day of Qiyamah. Rabbil firli wa tub alayya innaka antat tawwabur rahim. What else will happen in the grave? MashaAllah. Actually, the story, what is going to happen in the grave? Imam Suyuti wrote a book. MashaAllah. The thickness of this Quran. What is going to happen in the grave? Sharh al-Sudur fi Ahwal al-Mawta wal-Qubur, being written by Imam As-Suyuti. I think it's translated into English. I don't know. I think so. Allahu a'lam. I like the one which is in Arabic, because you get a taste of the author. And then after the grave has the period of grave has finished, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell Israfil to do the first blow. You have learned this. Israfil will be blowing his trumpet for the first time. When Israfil blows a trumpet, then everything on this earth will be destroyed. Okay? And that during that period, everyone will be destroyed. Even among those in the grave will be destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And yes, correct. Everyone will be destroyed. Okay? So there will be nothing left. There's no azab. There's no ni'mah. There's no nothing for how long? For 40 years. There will be nothing for 40 years. Except for Allah. And what? After the second blow, then Israfil himself will be destroyed. There will be nothing left. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَوْمَ نَطْوِي السَّمَاءَ كَطَيِّ سِجِلِّ الْكُتُبِ. On the day where we will fold the heavens and the earth, just as how people fold papers. How do you fold papers? Roll papers. How do you roll papers? So, roll. Khalas, everything will be destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And everything will be destroyed by Allah except for few things. What are those few things? If you remember at the beginning of the class. the beginning of our course? Huh? What are those? The 8 things that will not be destroyed by Allah. The 8 things that will not be destroyed. Number 1 is Number 1 will be kursi. Number 2 it is arsh. And then Jannah. And then paradise. Okay, again. The kursi, the chair will not be destroyed by Allah. The arsh, the throne will not be destroyed by Allah. The next one is Jannah, paradise will not be destroyed by Allah. And then the 4th is the hellfire. The 5th is qalam, the pen. The 6th is the tablet. 7th coccyx. Your tailbone. The doctors taught me. Coccyx. Is it? Doctors. I'm teaching in one medical university in KL. So they taught me this word. And then the next one is your ruh, your soul will not be destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. And during this period, it will be a period of 40 years. Okay? Where there will be nothing happening during these 40 years. Except for these 8 things that will not be destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With the will of Allah. Not because these 8 things cannot be destroyed. These 8 things can be destroyed with whatever Allah wants to destroy. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has willed that these 8 things will not be destroyed. And during this 40 years of period, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will challenge every single creation who think that they are great. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell them, where are you now? Limanil mulkul yawm. To whom the government belongs to today. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself answer, Lillahil wahidil qahhar. It belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who is the compelling. Jalla jalaluh wa ta'ala fi'ula. And there will be no one who is able to even answer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will show His majesty during that day. At that day He will show His majesty Jalla jalaluhu wa ta'ala fi'ula. Rabbighfirli wa tub alayya innaka antat tawwabur rahim. And there is no creation is able to do anything on that day other than listening whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to do and wants to challenge people. After 40 years, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give life to Israfil. After 40 years. After the 40 years, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give life to Israfil. And Israfil, after receiving instruction from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but before Israfil received the instruction from Allah, everyone will go through Ba'ath. Ba'ath means resurrection. Okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will prepare a place. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send down rains of sperms to that empty place. And then as soon as the sperm reaches the ground, people will grow out from the soil just as how plants grow from the soil. Okay? But only their body, without any souls yet. Their body will grow out from the ground just as how plants grow out from the ground. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will instruct Israfil to blow his trumpet for the 3rd time. And then all souls will go to its body on that day. All souls will return to its body. And on that day, everyone will not have clothes except for a few people. Generally, they are amongst the awliya wa salihin, the righteous, and the awliya, the close people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will have clothes in a form of honor. Also for those people who their children memorizes Quran. Their children memorize Quran. Then they will be clothed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not only would they will not only be clothed by Allah, they will get the clothes of the kings with crown from by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Those people who memorizes the Quran. Imam al-Haddad, he said that if this is the kind of honor Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give to a person who memorizes the Quran, what kind of honor do you think Allah is able to give to the one who memorizes the Quran himself? So that is why it's a great thing, it's a good idea for you to memorize the Quran. Or if you're not able to memorize the Quran, then what you do? You make your children memorize the Quran. Good idea, isn't it? So that you will be clothed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rabbi ighfirli wa tub alayya innaka antat tawwabur rahim. And then inshallah we will continue next week on the story on how people will, when they receive their souls by Israfil, after Israfil blow the third time on his trumpet. We will tell the stories in detail inshallah.